It's going to be a totally different video. It's a political video.
I don't know about you, but I've been dying to hear the political views of a Star Wars YouTuber.
You guys have probably seen me dance around a lot of subjects online over the last 9 years that this guy has been in power and being very careful with my choice of words, just like right now. And that's because of living in this totalitarian kind of dictatorship.
The totalitarian dictatorship of Canada. I swear to God, if these people actually lived in a dictatorship, they would just cry themselves to sleep every night.
If you didn't like the Acolyte, then, you know, you're called this, that, and the other thing, and you're put into a box. Only this time, you don't get canceled by random people on Twitter with 2 followers. You could have your bank account seized or frozen, or next time you want to fly, maybe they're going to give you a hard time.
That might be the worst take in the history of the internet ever. If you didn't like the Acolyte, you could have your bank account seized. In what world? In what world does this guy live in? I'm assuming that he's referring to the trucker protest where a bunch of truckers blocked the border and wouldn't let trade through, and it cost companies billions of dollars, and they had their bank account seized, which I don't agree with. I thought that was an awful thing to do, but do you know why it happened? Because they actually affected businesses and the government. They cost people a ton of money, and their protest was very, very effective, so they had to do something about it. The fact that he thinks that if you don't like a Star Wars show, that you're gonna have your bank account seized immediately. Whoever is listening to this should be like, oh, this is an unserious person. This is a person that should not be listened to because they don't live in actual reality.
I was born and raised in Vancouver. I'm 34 years old, law-abiding citizen. I pay my taxes, and I yet still live in fucking fear because I don't know what this dude is going to do.
We're pretty much the same age. I'm 33, he's 34. We're both born in Vancouver, very similar, and he lives in fear. It must suck to live in fear of nothing. Like, you've created this whole reality in your mind where the government is after you because of what you've said about Star Wars, and therefore you live in fear they're gonna come after you. That's like schizophrenic levels of paranoia.
Just a couple weeks ago, I got an email that he wants to take away all my guns.
I'm not surprised that he likes guns at all.
I love guns. I love shooting at the range.
He should probably just move to the States. He's obviously Hold on. I'm gonna check how much money this dude makes. Okay, so I checked Social Blade. It's kind of like a rough estimate of how much they're going to make just off AdSense. So that doesn't count what he's going to make off sponsors and all that other shit. I'm sure he's got podcasts and stuff that are doing really well. But just off ad revenue, this dude is making up to $12,000 a month just in ad revenue. Just move, my guy. What are you talking about? You have so much money. He's got 3 million subscribers. This dude is 100% a millionaire. Just move, man. Move to fucking Texas, dude. It's cheaper to live there anyway.
There's a bill called Bill C-11, which you might have heard me mention. Trudeau pushed this forwards, and if you're a Canadian YouTuber or streamer, or you have some sort of an online platform, if you say something he doesn't like, who knows what happens? Go read about it. Bill C-11.
Bill C-11 in Canada was introduced to help promote Canadian content on websites. So it's basically a thing that went to YouTube and said, if you are serving content to Canadian viewers, a certain percentage of it has to be Canadian-made content. And they did this because back in the day, on radio stations and TV stations in Canada, you had to play a certain amount of Canadian content, and it helped Canadian industries grow. It helped Canadian creators grow, and the TV industry here, movie industry, all that kind of stuff. So it's kind of trying to tackle that, since most of it is moved to the internet now. They were trying to be like, hey, maybe we should do that again, but for internet services, so that we can help Canadian industries not die. It's not really the best the way they did it. It makes it so Canadian creators are kind of buried in the algorithm of YouTube and stuff like that, which they didn't go about it the best way.
There have been some interesting cases already.
There's been interesting cases. Can you name one? Can you name one?
With how Star Wars has gone with Disney and the people they've employed, having the same kind of mental structure with elitism, acting like they're very inclusive, but only if you agree with their values. It's literally like that, but that's the leader of your country.
I've been working on a script about this for a while, and it's this weird notion that everything is woke now because Hollywood is trying to push their values onto people, and that is not the case. These are multi-billion-dollar companies. So what are their goals? Their goals are to to make money. They don't really care if you like gay people or black people or women. They don't care. They saw that the younger generation, which is going to be the people who are buying toys and merch and investing in their movies and getting money from their parents to go spend it on Disney products, they are more socially aware than any past generation. So Disney, in its infinite wisdom, thought, well, let's target that demographic of children to try and sell them things, not to try and make them accept gays. They're just trying to make money. So to think that there is this elite group of Disney insiders who are sitting in a room trying to make sure that every show has a woman and a representation and is following DE, it's not real. They're just trying to make money. And it has made movies and shows kind of suck, but it doesn't make them suck because they're pushing an agenda. It makes them suck because all they care about is money.
There is only division here. Canada's like the real life Twitter, essentially. It's Twitter in the flesh.
And I don't know if he walks around Vancouver and people scream at him. I highly doubt it, because most people don't even give a shit that you exist when you walk around Vancouver. It's kind of like New York, where if you look someone in the eyes, they'll ask what the fuck is wrong with you and continue on their day. If you solely live online, you're reading comments and just getting anger baited all the time, yeah, you're probably going to assume that everyone is out to get you and everyone is super divided. But if you just go talk to some people, you just talk to someone like a human, like old school shit, you just see a person on a bench, you sit down, you have a conversation. Chances are you're going to have a lot more in common than you think. Even if they're on the other side of the political spectrum, you're going to have some common ground. People aren't actually that divided. It is just a facade that has been created by algorithms in order to try and keep you on platforms and angry and engaged, because they realize that the angrier you are, the more engaged you'll be and the longer that you'll sit on their platforms. That's it, man. People are not that divided. Go touch some grass.
And it's not fun, dude. You guys have probably heard me talk about wanting to move to the States so many times, and I would have by now 10 times over if I wasn't doing the Vader fan film.
You heard me talk about moving to the States 10 times, but I can't because my super awesome Star Wars fan film, even though I live in a dictatorship and it's totalitarian, I can't say what I want to say. And if I say I don't like a show, I could be thrown in prison, or they could put me on a no-fly list if I didn't like the fucking Acolyte. I can't just move to the States, guys. My Vader fan film is in production, so my hands are tied.
I'm the biggest Star Wars YouTuber on the planet. I've got over 1 billion views on this channel alone. I have several other channels. Theory Sabers is blowing up beyond our wildest dreams, and yet we're still having a hard time. The price of things and the amount of tax that this guy takes, Vancouver and BC are the most expensive places to live. Groceries, housing.
Okay, this guy is not wrong. Vancouver is disgustingly expensive to live in. I tried to move there once. Impossible. Unless you got 4 jobs and you don't like sleep, living in Vancouver is next to impossible. So he's not wrong. But to think that Trudeau is responsible for the housing prices and grocery prices, I could go into a lot of depth, but it's basically like anything else in the world right now, where companies took the idea of inflation and they raised their prices way beyond what inflation was so that they could suck profits out of wherever they possibly could. And in Canada, it's even worse because the grocery stores are pretty much owned by 3 fucking companies. So all of the grocery stores can fix their prices and you can't really go anywhere to buy food if you would like to that is cheaper than what they are offering. So it is way worse here. It's probably even worse in Vancouver, but it has almost nothing to do with Trudeau, unless he wants to change bills and write legislation making it so companies can't raise prices, which would be price fixing, which I'm sure would lead this guy to be like, wow, we live in even more of a dictatorship because this guy won't let companies make money when they want to make money. That's your only solution. He would just be seen as more of a dictator and more of a socialist commie Stalin level person if he decided to help you with grocery prices.
And everyone always talks about healthcare. Healthcare in Canada is free. Why do you think? And it takes you 6 months to get an appointment. And then when you finally get it, the doctor's just like, not going to do anything about it unless you get private healthcare.
I hate this argument so much. Yeah, healthcare in Canada is free, and you do have to wait for certain surgeries. Do you know why that is? Because in the States, you would pay to be moved up a list to get your surgery sooner, okay? So in Canada, if you are not a priority, something's not threatening your life, yeah, it sucks. You gotta wait for a surgery, but it's because they're doing surgeries on people who need it first, which is how it should work. You should not be able to pay to take a surgery spot from someone who actually needs the surgery but can't pay the same same price as you. That's fucking insane. Wait times in hospitals, this has been studied so many times, but they're pretty similar to what they are in the States. I've had to go to the hospital in the States. You know how long I waited for? Like 3-4 hours. That's pretty much what it is in Canada. Is it a lot worse in some places? Yes. In Quebec, it is crazy. The healthcare system here is completely fucked. But do you know why that is? Because the government doesn't properly spend the taxes that it takes. It's not because we're taxed too much and universal healthcare doesn't work. It's because they broke the system on purpose to try and push people towards private healthcare because those people give politicians money. It's such a fucking moot point to be like, you gotta wait a lot of time to get a surgery. Yeah, man, that's how it should work. I'm sorry, dude. Buck up. Maybe he's waiting to get his chin fixed. I've been trying not to make jokes about how I want to fuck his chin, but it's really hard. It's fucking tasty looking.
I don't even know if this channel is going to be around after this video. I don't know if the next time I want to go travel, I'm going to get a hard time. I have no idea. Best believe if I do, I'll probably document it.
The delusions of grandeur with this man are off the fucking charts. He makes one video talking about how he doesn't like Trudeau and he thinks that he's going to take his bank account away for not liking a Star Wars show. And he thinks that his whole channel is going to be taken down. It's going to be harder for him to fly next time he goes to fly because he made a video talking about liking that Trudeau resigned. Number one, he lives in a fantasy world. Number two, he thinks he's the fucking main character of that fantasy world. No one gives a shit, guy. No one cares. You're gonna get on a plane next time you need to fly, and they're not even gonna look at you twice because they don't know who the fuck you are, man, because you're just a Star Wars YouTuber. There is gigantic YouTubers like Charlie, Moist Critical. I bet you that dude 99% of the time gets on a fucking plane, gets on a train, walks to the grocery store. No one knows who the fuck he is. And he is huge on YouTube. I think the only person out there that's probably going to get harassed is like Mr. Beast, but that's because he's broken through that level of like YouTube fame into mainstream levels of fame. You're not going to get stopped and have your butt searched because you said a no-no thing about Justin Trudeau.
Now, this isn't a victory. A victory would be a election. So what I think would happen is that Pierre Poilievre would win and hopefully start to fix Canada.
Pierre Poilievre is the Conservative Party leader. He is kind of just like a vanilla version of Trump that has way less charisma. And to think that he is going to come in and fix housing prices and grocery prices. The housing crisis in Canada is so multi-layered and multifaceted. To think that the leader of a party is going to come in and change that is insane, man. If you knew how it worked at all, it has to do with like import pricing and how much it costs to make a house and how many companies own companies. Oh, there's just companies and companies. It's like a little Russian doll. You just keep taking it out and it's just more companies. But how many companies can actually build houses? It's a very small amount of companies in Canada now. It used to be a lot of contractors could go and build houses, but it has shrunk because they have sucked up all the other companies. And now there's only a certain amount of people who can even build houses or have the means to do that, and they've raised the prices. There's so many issues that would have to be fixed. It doesn't just have to do with Trudeau saying that people aren't allowed to build houses. Even in Vancouver, the biggest issue for a long time, rich Chinese people would come to Vancouver and buy property in Vancouver so that they could appreciate their assets in a different country and it wouldn't be taxed, and there was a bunch of loopholes. And Vancouver let this happen because it basically brought in a bunch of money from outside which could be taxed, and it was a lot easier for them, and it helped the city in certain ways, but it also raised the price of housing a lot to the point where people can't afford to live there because the people that own the houses don't even live there, and they're paying insane amounts of money because it's just a portfolio investment for them. Those kind of things, they're not solved by the federal government. They're not solved by Trudeau or Pierre being in power. They're solved by huge restructuring of how our economy works and how monopolies in Canada work and how we kind of live in like an oligarchy or whatever it is when multiple companies kind of run the government at the same time and the government doesn't really have power. I think it's a oligopoly or a oligarchy, one of the two. Someone please tell me what words are.
And let's get over this whole liberal conservative bullshit. We all need to just coexist. The problem is that so many people, namely liberals and conservatives have this issue too. It's people in general think that their way is the best. And if somebody else thinks differently or wants to live differently, then that's a problem. We all need to fucking coexist. We all need to live together and respect the fact that we're all different. We just have different values, and that's okay. As long as you're not harming anybody, do your thing.
I've been a big advocate of that for like a long time. Is if people have other views, that's how they are. You know, like the same way that I was born into the family and the society that I was at the time that I was born as a black man. I can't change that as much as someone born in the deep south in a small town raised by racists probably can't change the fact that they have racist views. That's just how it is. And we shouldn't hate on people for having those views. We shouldn't fight with people constantly for having different values than we do. We should learn how to coexist and find that middle ground. But for someone who makes their money, I don't know, currently shitting on Star Wars because they're too woke, it's just kind of funny to me to be like, yeah, we should all learn to get along, but also fuck Disney because DEI.
Everyone just wants to live a happy life. Everyone wants to live comfortably with freedom to be able to just speak their mind. And I haven't felt comfortable to speak my mind online in nine years. I feel like I've had a freaking gag order on the stuff I say. And that's why a lot of you have probably been like, "Yo, why is he's like a sharp dude for the most part? Why does he sometimes dance around certain questions?" That's because I'm concerned about what I do say. It could be considered a hate crime or whatever, and you get thrown in jail.
Again, I would like to reiterate, this dude talks about Star Wars, and he is actually worried that what he says about Star Wars will be considered a hate crime and he will be thrown in prison. I don't know what you're holding back from saying that would be considered a hate crime, but maybe you should go to a therapist or something, because if you're that angry about Star Wars that you think you're going to commit a hate crime and end up in prison, you need some help.
That's why I've been kind of dancing around certain subjects, and you guys can probably guess which those certain subjects are. But it's essentially like living in acolyte land. If you don't agree with the guy, you don't get unfollowed, you end up in jail. Or
I think this guy really thinks that if he doesn't agree with everything Trudeau says, he'll be thrown in prison. Do you know how many people would be in prison right now if that were true? The entirety of Alberta would be in a jail cell right now if that was reality. But it's not, man. I'm sorry to break it to you, but the last 9 years on your YouTube channel, you could have said whatever the fuck you wanted to say, and it would not have made a difference. You'd be exactly where you are right now, except people would probably, have a slightly different take on who you are and what you think, and maybe some people wouldn't like you, maybe some people would like you more. I don't know. I'm not a psychic, man. I can't tell what people would think. I just can't let go of the fact that this guy is actually afraid that if he had said certain things about Star Wars, that he would actually be in jail. That is insane. This man needs help. I'm sure if I sat down and chilled with this dude, we'd probably hit it off. He seems like a chill guy who just has some weird notions about how the world works and how he might end up in prison because the acolyte. I don't know how those two things connect in your brain. But alas, I think this guy's probably chill. If we hung out, it would be a good time. And I'm not doing this to say that he is the dumbest person ever. He's a bad person. I just thought this was a really bad take. And maybe this isn't the lane that he should continue down. He said he's never talked about politics before, and clearly that's for a reason. I think this dude's probably a pretty cool guy. I just wanted to shit on this video because he's kind of dumb. That's okay. Everyone can be a little dumb sometimes. Go touch grass, drink some water. See you in the next one.